I'm Olivia Lupia, filling in today for the one and only Yaffee. I am with the Tennessee Conservative. We are going to speak now with State Representative Jody Barrett, who has graciously worked us into his very busy schedule today. How are you today, sir?
Doing very well. Thank you for having me on.
Oh, my gosh. Thank you for joining us. So I know it's a busy day down there. Fill us in a little bit about what's going on. What you got cooking today?
Well, we are still in the midst of committee meetings today. Just spent about almost 2 hours in education full committee and kind of bouncing back and forth. Also have a bill pending in state and local. Been waiting for a couple of weeks to try to get it heard and still didn't get heard today. But we're slogging through. Hopefully education will get through its calendar. We're going to meet again tomorrow and be completely done with our education committee calendar and hopefully be ready to close that committee by the end of the week.
Good grief. Lots and lots going on. This session has been a little bit crazy and different. It seems like you guys are having to kind of make up some ground because we had that week off in the, for the snowstorm, and then it just seems like everything's been kind of get pushed back and pushed back and pushed back, and so now you guys seems like having to play some catch up, which is no fun for anyone.
Well, I think they're all unique. Every year I've been up here now. This is my fourth session, and it seems like they all have their own different feel and pace about them. But definitely, this one with the week off for the ice storm, and then also we took a week off in the middle of things to handle all of our budget hearings at one time. Kind of let all the committees take off except for Finance, Ways and Means, and that kind of put, I think, everybody behind the eight ball. And then when we got back the following week, everyone put all of their bills on notice. And so it was like starting a race with 199 people, or 133 people at least, on the start line going at the same time.
Oh, that doesn't sound like chaos at all. We are speaking with State Representative Jody Barrett, who has a couple of really great bills. You finally got back in the well. We were covering this yesterday, actually, Tennessee Conservative. So tell us about some of these bills that you passed. You were able to get all the way through this crazy committee process. You fought for them on the House floor, and hopefully now they're one step closer to becoming law. So tell us about a couple of these awesome bills that you've got cooking.
Well, we've the first thing we got through last week on the consent calendar, we added to the list of official state songs with a song by Drew Holcomb that will actually be coming up next Monday to the House floor to perform his song called Tennessee. That's kind of the feel-good, fun bill of the session. But yesterday, as you said, got back in the well, got two education or education-adjacent bills through, one being dealing with the history of communism and adjusting the state standards to require that schools provide some age-appropriate educational instruction on the history of communism, particularly as it relates to the failures of communist regimes, the negative impacts on the people that have suffered through them, so that our students are getting a full picture of our history. Unfortunately, I think what's happened is a lot of our students, younger students today, think that our history began at 9/11 and don't really have a lot of context for what we went through before radical Islamic terrorism became the main point of emphasis of our fight. And so I think it's important for them to understand that full context, have some sort of filler information of what happened between World War II and 9/11, and so understand kind of how we got where we are. And then the second bill yesterday, not to dominate your segment here, but we passed a bill that came to me from a student at the University of Tennessee who is a member of the Student Government Association there, and passed some legislation on campus to allow students to take a class holiday on Election Day in order to be able to vote and participate in the election process. And that was well taken there at the university level, supported by the president, not only Donda Plowman, but also the president of the system, Randy Boyd. And so that student, Colby Norrod, came and reached out to members of the legislature to see if he could find some support to make that statewide. across all state public institutions of higher learning, and we were able to get that done yesterday.
That is huge. Two really good things. And I will say, you know, and when I talk about, I have the privilege / torment of watching a lot of these committee hearings live and these House floor sessions, and Representative Barrett's interaction with the Democrats who were pushing back on the communist bill was phenomenal. He dropped I think you dropped like one of the coolest lines ever that should be spoken in Tennessee history. Is this Democrat was railing and he said, you know, can you even define communism, or do you even know the difference between socialism and communism and whatever? And I just love that you were like, I can, but I'm not gonna. It's like, that's beautiful, because we don't need to play with this. And I think you can speak to this more a little bit, but that the experience you have is I see sometimes a lot of these Republicans, they want to engage in this back and forth. And I'm all about healthy debate when legitimate questions are being asked, or, you know, just to cut off debate for the sake of cutting off debate is never okay. But there is a time and a place, I think, and you demonstrated perfectly, to just nip this stuff in the bud and say, I know where you're going and I'm not going to give you that opportunity. So that's huge. And I actually think I wish more lawmakers would take your cue on that. So how was that for you to be able to get up and just do what you needed to do?
Well, you never really know if which bills they're going to select to get themselves on camera and make their little speech. But
very true.
This was the one for Representative Jones yesterday, and he started out by asking me to define what communism is, and I think he specifically mentioned democratic socialism, to which I quipped back, well, no thank you, I'll defer to your expertise in that area.
Yes.
It seems that, you know, he knows much more about that and has much more extensive personal experience in that world. And so I don't think he liked that too well, and that kind of elevated his speech a little bit, and I think he challenged my competency and ability to explain my bill, to which I just responded, there's a difference between can and won't. I can do it, but I won't. And so you can just read the bill, and it tells you what this does. Yeah,
and that's huge. So just, again, for everybody listening who may not be totally familiar with some of the process, State Representative Jody Barrett with us explaining just kind of, again, how this works and what's going on in your state house is that, and you made such a good point, is you never know which ones they're going to get all hung up on. And there's so many that I watch, I'm like, okay, this should be no big deal. I know they're going to vote against it, but what really are they going to say? And they will spend 30, 40 minutes, you know, harping on this thing or getting themselves all worked up, and someone holds their ground calmly, coolly, respectfully like you did, and it just sends them into a tailspin. So it's really informative to watch, and I think is a great example for a lot of us and how we can hopefully have interactions, you know, in our own spaces or our own spheres of influence. So that's cool. And I think, too, I want to just loop back real quick around to what you said about constituents bringing you a bill. And I know that you and I have talked about this previously, but so many of your bills come from your constituents. And I think that's huge because you're trying to give an example of governing, you know, from the ground up, kind of making sure, we talked about this before with the Senate, the U.S. Senate has forsaken their duty of representing the people. And here I think you're trying to give the opposite and do the opposite. So I commend you for that, and then talk maybe just a couple real quickly about what that process is like for you and why it's so important for you to do things that way.
Sure. And I think it's important probably for your listeners to know there's several different ways that a bill originates or finds its way onto the desk of a representative or a senator. Oftentimes it's what they call administration bills, where it's coming directly from the governor's administration, one of the departments seeking to change some law or make some tweak to make their life easier or better. Other times it's coming from special interest groups or lobbyists that are working in a particular industry that are trying to affect change in that industry. But for me, the most satisfying and I think the best pieces of legislation that I've been able to produce are all those that have generated from people right here within the district that I represent and know or work for, that have a need or an issue, something that they have experienced in their interactions with the state or state government, and you know, they need an outlet, someone to champion for them they come to me with that idea, and then we talk through it and mold that idea into a bill. And being able to see those get through the process and become adopted into law is very satisfying.
That is excellent. Perfect timing, my friend, too. You nailed it. So we were speaking with State Representative Jody Barrett. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's always a privilege to talk to you, and thank you for taking time out to give us an inside peek about what's going on.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me on, and thank you for all you do, Olivia, for covering everything that goes on up here. It's important work that you do.
Well, I appreciate it, and we appreciate you. I always like to leave you guys, and I say always, the few times that I have had the privilege of being your hostess with the mostest, I like to leave you guys with a call to action. So we talk about all this stuff, and you're like, great, you've given me so much information. What the heck am I supposed to do with that? Or you really bummed me out. What am I supposed to do now? So I do want to leave you with some practical tips here and practical calls to action that you can implement, things that are easy to do. So the most important thing right now, we're about to come into April here, is vote. You've got to vote in the primaries. And we touched on this a little bit earlier, where people are saying, well, I'm really frustrated, so I'm just not going to turn out and this and that. That's not the answer. It's not. It's frustrating. We're all frustrated, definitely, particularly conservatives, because we fight for stuff, or we say, hey, I've been telling you the writing's been on the wall for however long, and now things that we were warning about are coming to fruition. We told you. That is frustrating, absolutely, but we shouldn't let it deter us from doing the things that are going to make the impact. So a lot of people think, well, I don't need to show up in the primary, I'll just vote in the general because, that's what really matters, or that's where the big decision happens. And I would really encourage you to do the opposite and to change your mindset, to really understand that the primary election is where your power is. Your primary election is where you get to determine who your candidate actually is. So instead of just showing up and say, well, as long as we get a Republican, that's better than a Democrat, that's honestly the mentality that's put us a lot, frankly, in the position where we are, where we're not happy with our elected representation because they're not doing what we asked them to do. But if we had had a better candidate, hopefully they would have done a better job. So please go vote in the primary, whether you vote early or whether you vote on election day. I think most states are having their primaries or in the middle of them, whatever state you're in, Georgia, Florida, Alabama, Tennessee. We're coming up on Tennessee primaries here soon. I think early voting is going to start not too far out from here. I can't remember the exact days, but go vote. And like I said, if you're not happy with the primary candidates that are on your ballot, well, you have a chance to either next time run yourself, which is a great thing. Start small. Run for school board. Run for city council. Just get out there and run. Start putting your name out. Start building connections, serving your community, doing what you need to do. Or find a candidate who is willing to run, and when you find them, support them. Because a lot of times we ask so much of our elected officials or these candidates and say, well, we want you and it's your responsibility, and then we don't help them carry their burdens, or we send them off to do their job and we don't give them any support after that. So vote in the primaries. That is going to be the biggest thing that we can do to create change at the level it needs to be. I know, and guys, we've got to make sure that we're paying attention to who we're voting for. Just make sure that you're keeping an eye out for any inconsistencies, any irregularities, stuff that you're seeing going on. Make note of it, report it to who you need to report. If you see things are going wonky, I know there was a flip in Florida. They flipped a House district from red to blue, 800 votes. Then they come to find out that a worker in that election, which this is the district that includes Mar-a-Lago, by the way, so nothing fishy there, I'm sure. Reportedly, I saw that someone had been arrested, a poll worker, because he stole election information or had the key to the machines to do something else, and so there's concerns of cheating now. So those are the things we need to keep our eye on, but 800 votes is not a lot, you guys. So whether or not those elections were rigged, 800 votes is not very many. There are a lot of races that truly do come down, particularly at the local level, to 1 or 2 votes. So anyway, vote in the primary. That's your call to action today. Get to know your candidates, do your research, vote with your conscience. Obviously, make the best decision with someone who lines up with conservative values and Christian values, and do the best you can. So it has been my pleasure, you guys. Thank you so much for letting me host. Olivia, Lupia.